I remember when I was a kid, my mother used to have an illustrated Bible, and from time to time we will sit down and go through the pages. I remember I was learning how to read, and so the Bible was too complicated for reading, but we will go through the pages and look at the images. It was a beautiful illustrated Bible. And there were several of the images that impacted me, but I remember this particular one where you had in heaven, all the saints and surrounded by the angels and the archangels, and you can identify among the saints those most popular, St. Jude, St. Francis, and the apostles. But at the bottom of the illustration, and very prominent, it was this image of Jesus crucified, and it was difficult not to draw your attention from the picture of the saints to this image of Jesus crucified, because it was very, very realistic. It was a Spanish Bible, so the Spanish painting are very realistic when it comes to depict Jesus on the cross. Cuando era pequeño, mi madre tenía una Biblia ilustrada y yo era muy pequeño para poder leer la Biblia así, pero veíamos las imágenes que venían incluidas, y recuerdo entre otras esta imagen de los santos en el cielo rodeados de los ángeles y todo, pero al centro de esta imagen, y de una manera muy prominente, estaba la imagen de un Jesús crucificado, ¿no? Era una Biblia española, entonces ustedes saben que las imágenes de Jesús tanto en España como en México son muy realistas, ¿no? Con mucha sangre, y era difícil no llevar la atención. And I was thinking about this image, and I said, I wonder why they put this big image of Jesus on the cross, taking the attention from the glory of the saints, this beautiful image of all the saints in heaven, praising and adoring and looking at the face of God constantly. But when I was getting ready for today's homily and looking at this conversation that James and John are having with Jesus, asking him to sit at the right and at the left of him in his kingdom. And Jesus responding to them, "You do not know what you're asking." And then he continues by asking them, "Are you willing to drink from the chalice that I'm going to drink? Are you willing to be baptized with the baptism that I'm going to be baptized?" And it makes sense, the image that I remember from that illustrated Bible. The saints are in heaven because they went through the cross, through the suffering of the cross. That's why this image, was depicted like that. The cross and then the glory of the saints. In a couple of weeks, we will be celebrating All Saints' Day, so that's a good meditation for that day. Other than just look at the saints for the wonderful things they did in their lives and the miracles, but we have to look at their lives as the ones that went through the cross. Ya ahora con un poco más de años, y cuando estaba preparando esta homilía, pensé en esa imagen, ¿no? de la Biblia ilustrada, y tuvo sentido, ¿no? ¿Por qué estar esta imagen de Jesús crucificado y después la imagen de los santos en el cielo? Porque solamente a través de la cruz es que estos santos pudieron llegar al cielo. a través del sacrificio y del dolor. A veces pensamos en los santos solamente por las cosas tan maravillosas que hicieron, la transformación de su vida o los milagros de intercesión que pueden hacer por nosotros, pero tenemos que pensar que para poder llegar a ese punto tuvieron que pasar por la cruz. So we probably, ask ourselves, what's wrong for James and John to ask Jesus to go to heaven? Because that's basically what they were asking. Allow us to sit one at your right and one at your left in the kingdom. So we can say, what was wrong with that? Why Jesus was, responded to them in that way? You don't know what you're asking. If this is what we all are, somehow asking in our lives, we want to go, not necessarily to sit at the right or at the left, but at least to get to heaven, right? But at that point, they did not understand exactly what they were asking, because they were thinking of a kingdom with power and a kingdom that it's acquired just because you want to be there, or because you know the one that is going to be the king. So it is not only desiring to go to heaven what is going to get us there. It's not just asking the Lord that we want to go to heaven, that He will get us there. We have to do our part, And that heaven, it's already won for us through the cross. That's why Jesus went up to the cross, to give us the possibility of going there. But we have to do our part. We have to take the sufferings that we have in life, because, you all know that life is not easy. I have said this many times, because that's what it is. We all have our sufferings in life, in different ways, but we know that life is not easy, and we all have to go through different situations. And this suffering and in life is what is going to help us to get there to heaven. Just like the saints. If you pick one of the saints and look at their lives, they were not exempt from suffering and sacrifice. Even the most beautiful life of the saints, they will always mention that cross, that suffering, And Jesus doesn't want us to add suffering to our lives. Just the ones we have to go through are enough. But we have to put this suffering, these sacrifices that we do in our lives, we have to put it through the cross so they can make sense. So this suffering and the things we go in life, they will make sense, and it will help us to go to heaven. So that's what Jesus, was trying to convey to James and John. It's not just wanting to go to heaven. It's not just asking. It's not just to get a place there. It's what we have to do to get there. And that's why He shows the way of the cross. This is difficult to understand, because the world we live in, the society we live in, is constantly telling us that we are not here to suffer, right? We are here to have a good time. And yes, the Lord wants us to have a good time here on earth, doing what is right, good, and just. But it's not just that. With that, having a good time here on earth, being happy, having a good life to its fullness, it also takes with it the sacrifice, and the suffering, and the difficulties and infirmities and problems in marriage and difficulties in general in life. We cannot ignore those from our lives because that's what is going to help us to get there to heaven. Remember the image that I was telling you at the beginning? You know, the life of the saints needed that cross in order to enjoy, enjoy that heaven. So it is difficult to understand this, especially because, remember, the world speaks very loud. And the world is constantly telling us, you're not here to suffer, you're here to have a good time, do whatever you can to have a wonderful life here, and you only live once, that it was that acronym some years ago. And sometimes we Catholics, people of faith, we tend to believe that. We're not here to suffer, so, we have to live our life and whatever it comes. But we must not be, fooled by this, by the world. We have to take our normal suffering. Now let me repeat it. The Lord doesn't want to add to our suffering. Just to take the suffering that we have, the regular things in life, and put it to the cross, and leave it as a way to be better, and take it as a way to be more mindful of the suffering of others and the needs of others, and use this suffering and sacrifice for the salvation of the world. And I know, and I repeat this again, we all have something in our lives, because life is not easy. So let us use that suffering, put it through the cross, and make it worth, given the sense that it needs. Just as the saints did. That heaven that James and John were asking the Lord, and at the end they were able to get it. They are amongst the saints. But it was through the sacrifice and the suffering. Sacrifice and suffering is something that it is not nice to talk about, that we don't want to experience, that we want to avoid. And yes, you're right, we don't want to suffer. That's very human. We want to have a good life. But, my brothers and sisters, that's part of our lives. It goes with our lives. So let's make the best out of it. El sufrimiento y el dolor y el sacrificio es algo que no queremos en nuestra vida, y no queremos hablar y queremos evitarlo, ¿no? Pero mis hermanos y hermanas, esto es parte, viene con la vida. Es imposible decir que alguien tiene una vida sin sufrimiento y sin dificultades, ¿no? Eso solamente en las películas existe. La vida real viene con dificultades. La manera de enfrentarlo es a través de la cruz. Por eso la respuesta de Jesús a Santiago y Juan, no saben lo que piden. No se trata solamente de decir quiero ir al cielo. Tenemos que llegar con nuestra vida y con lo que nuestra vida representa. Por eso al principio de la misa les decía yo, cuando venimos a la misa traemos con nosotros sufrimientos, dolor, nuestra vida, y lo ponemos ahí en el altar, para que a través del sacrificio de la misa, que se repite cada vez que celebramos, el Señor tome todo esto, lo transforme, le dé sentido, nos lo devuelva con gracias para que sigamos al camino al cielo. No venimos solamente a poner nuestros problemas en nuestra vida aquí y nos vamos. No, los dejamos, los transforma el Señor y nos los devuelve para seguir adelante. Eso es el signo de transformar nuestra vida y lo que traemos al altar a través del sacrificio. Let us ask the Lord in this liturgy to help us to understand the true meaning of sacrifice in our lives, that we can identify the things that we go through and put it through the cross and ask the Lord to transform it and to make it sense so we can know the path and we can continue on the path towards heaven. Amen.